The bands that create the most elastic and interesting music are ones that have very interesting, weird dynamics, differences between band members. And so I wouldn't change that. Better than 4 or 5 people, you know, making what I call corporate music, which is we agree on everything, want to maximize our returns, and let's put out music every year and let's tour every year and let's do this because we're Pepsi, or whatever. We're not. System of a Down has never been that.
Hi, my name is Ali, and I'm joined by Serj Tankian for the latest NME's In Conversation series. So yeah, you've got a new EP. It's made up of songs that were originally for kind of a new System Records. I mean, when you knew you'd be releasing them under your own name, did that change them at all?
Not really. See, originally the songs were written about 5-6 years ago. And when they came to me in that form, kind of like, specifically Electric On and Elasticity had a very punk ethos, they reminded me of System. And that's at the time we were, consulting with each other in terms of collaborating and working together. And we even got a chance to work on some of the songs. The guys, I was in New Zealand, the guys rehearsed some of the, or played around with some of the songs in the rehearsal studio, along with a bunch of their tunes, etc. But we weren't able to see eye to eye in terms of philosophically to move forward. So I just finished the songs as I originally intended to. So they didn't really change from what I had in mind. But I just, made the guitar sound better and finalized the programming on the drums and mixed and mastered and all that stuff. Yeah.
Amazing. And I guess sort of why release them now? If you're working on them sort of 5-6 years ago.
Well, that's a very good question. I don't know. It took me a while to just go, okay, I need to finish these songs and put them out, because, at one point we were discussing collaborating, and they were supposed to come out last year. And when the war happened with Armenia and Azerbaijan, when Azerbaijan and Turkey attacked the enclave of Artsakh with Syrian mercenaries, we kind of pushed, with the record label. We talked to the record label and we're like, we got to push this release because we wanted to do something with System to kind of really make an impact and raise funds and kind of get the awareness out there, because there was also a lot of disinformation coming from Azerbaijan about, false parody in the press and all of that stuff. So our goal was to combat that and raise funds for humanitarian purposes in Armenia. And so we pushed my personal release basically till this year to do so.
And I know kind of you released the 2 singles. There was also that sort of fundraising live stream you guys did together. Like how much sort of money have you raised so far?
I think we raised about 700,000 plus or minus somewhere. And we're working with 3 nonprofit organizations through Armenia Fund, which is a huge nonprofit organization. And mostly it's for prosthetics for soldiers that lost limbs in drone attacks, and also soldiers that were burned, laser therapy for soldiers that were burned in, usage of banned white phosphorus weaponry that Azerbaijan used against the Armenian Defense Forces.
That's amazing. What do you hope kind of these songs mean to people, kind of your new EP?
One meaning to all of them, good luck. I don't know. They each have their own kind of meaning, and I don't really like to get a lot, we can kind of talk about them in short, but I like people internalizing lyrical content for them to kind of feel more invested in a song than, kind of just tell you what I was feeling and what I was doing. So Elasticity itself is quite a juggernaut of musical ideas and lyrical conceptualizations. And it's, very punk rock ethos, but also kind of alternative grunge in some ways, musically. It's just, it's kind of like a trip, like following a mystery for me, that song. Electric On is simple because it's inspired and written about a specific protest that happened in 2015 in Armenia called the Electric On protests. And they were protests having to do with the hike in energy prices. And young people protested and the government backed off and basically didn't do the hike of energy prices. It was a successful protest. And it was a precursor to the 2018 Velvet Peaceful Revolution that occurred in Armenia, which I've made a produced a film about called I Am Not Alone. And it's also in the film Truth to Power about my involvement as an activist. Your mom, named you Ali. No, the song "Your Mom" is an interesting hybrid. Originally, the song was written about a specific terrorist organization with a very specific kind of, what do you call it? Kind of remedy of how to deal with that organization. But over time, because it was written many years ago, it felt outdated in terms of the actual facts. And and it was a little too specific for me. So I kind of messed it up by throwing in a caped crusader, which is your mom, to kick terrorist ass kind of thing. It became this surreal song. How many times is probably the first song I wrote for the whole suite. And it's it's a song about justice. It's a song about pursuing justice and spiritual through a spiritual path. It's a beautiful song. It's a wide-ranging song emotionally. Finally, the song Rumi I wrote about. It's a combination. It's a hybrid of a message of a father to his son and the universal messages of the Sufi poet Rumi, Jalaluddin al-Rumi. My son's name is Rumi, and the story is basically that my piano is located in the house, not in my studio, because it's big, and his playroom's right there too. So, when he was younger, when I first wrote that song, we were interacting just as you would, father just playing the keys and him making noises, and so I started singing to him, and that became it. The lyrics basically grew organically into being about him, but because he was named after the Sufi poet, it was important for me to kind of bring those messages into the song as well.
I think it's interesting that the EP is this mix of kind of fiery, political charged anthems, and then kind of, these more intimate, introspective songs, like Rumi. Was it kind of important for you that the record spoke to both kind of the political and the personal?
I guess I've always done that. I don't just write about one topic, even though I do write socio-political, lyrics, and whether it's through my solo work or with System, that's always been the case. You've got funny stuff and stream of consciousness stuff, and then serious as a heart attack stuff at the same time, sometimes within the same song, all within the same song. And it's just the way that I work. It's just the way that I think. At one point I say, love you and love someone. Next point, I'm angry at some injustice, and it all works together within the same moment for me.
I mean, what does Rumi think of the song?
I just showed him that a good friend of mine in New Zealand directed this song, the video for this song, which just finished, that we're going to put out soon. And I showed it to him, and he was like, wow. I don't think he had ever seen himself. I mean, he's seen videos of himself, obviously, playing around that we've shown him, but I don't think he had ever seen himself in a kind of short film type setting, and it was just like, and it's very mysterious. He's not like all over there and stuff. I think it's important to keep family a little, out of the limelight, but, so it was beautifully done, but it was cool. It was cool, it'll be a nice memory for him, I think.
Yeah. I mean, does he listen to much of your other music?
Oh yeah. No, he loves System, and he loves a bunch of my solo stuff, the orchestral stuff. He listens to all types of music. I was introducing him to death metal the other day because we've been on a Beatles kick for about a month and a half, where he listened to every Beatles song there is and knows them and sings them. And I'm like, okay, it's time for Slayer now, so in the car, we just started playing Slayer, Metallica, the band Death, and all this other stuff. And I'm like, do you like it? He's like, yeah, more, it's like, so it's cool introducing a varied, different types of music. He listens to hip hop, he listens to Armenian music and jazz. Oh, he got into jazz due to Snoopy, Vince Gilligan. Great music. So it's really cool.
Amazing. Yeah, because it's interesting. Like Gene Simmons has kind of been making headlines again by saying, rock music's dead. I guess you don't share that belief, or you'd be making different music to kind of spread your message.
I don't pay. Look, I do a lot of different types of music because I score film.
Yeah.
I've put out a symphony. I've put out a jazz record. I've done plenty of rock music. I don't really pay attention to the importance of genre-specific thinking. So if a certain inspirations come with and you think that genre will work best for it, that's the type of music you should release. Now, whether rock music will sell as much as dance music or hip hop or electronic music or whatever, I'm not interested in that thinking. My interest is to give the muse the right clothing,
Sure.
and the genre is the clothing for that inspiration. So I don't care.
Amazing. I mean, did it feel good to be making heavy music again?
Sure. I mean, it's second nature to me. It's quite easy making heavy music because I've done it for so long in a way that, putting together an arrangement for guitars, bass, drums, vocals, keys, whatever, it comes, I could do it quickly. I scored this film for a friend of mine, Joe Berlinger. I'm scoring his third thing now, a Netflix series, but I scored a film for him last year, and it was about a surfer, and he wanted rock music, and because that matched it, from surfer rock to heavy rock to stuff. So I got to do a whole fucking score of rock music, that was a lot of rock, man. It's like, and he loves wall-to-wall music, so it's kind of like it was almost 2 hours of rock music. It's like instrumental, obviously, but it was fun because it was easy.
Did making the CP kind of scratch an itch, or kind of do you want to make more now?
I've got a second EP already, kind of in the can, ready to go, of more kind of electro, spiritual rock music, if you will, rock genre, and then I've got a few records worth of cinematic music, a modern piano concerto. It's not like I did rock, I'm releasing this and that makes me want to do more rock. It's whatever comes in whatever format I'll put out.
Amazing. I mean, when are those, do you know when kind of those records are coming out, or you just
later this year? We haven't pegged dates, but later this year. Yeah.
Amazing. And also kind of your Truth to Power documentary came out recently, and like that kind of poses, quite a big question, the idea that can music change the world?
Right.
I mean,
you have to see the film to find the answer. Yeah, I mean, it's quite an interesting documentary. So the director is a guy named Garion Hobanesi, and he's a very good friend of mine. And we've made two documentaries together. Truth to Power, which is about basically my activism, which is the story that I really wanted to tell. Wasn't about my bio or music or System of a Down or behind the scenes or the rock stardom or any of that stuff, but it was more about what happens to an activist when he has a little voice, and then over time that voice becomes pronounced due to the success of the music. Mm-hmm. And what happens then, and what are the repercussions of being an artist activist? What are the fruits of that labor? And so it goes through all these interesting kind of storyline, I guess, of that. The other film we made is a film called I Am Not Alone, about the revolution in Armenia in 2018, the Velvet Revolution, that I also produced and scored. And so that'll be out this year as well. Yeah, I mean, so that was the take. That was the important story to me, was of Truth to Power, was the activist journey.
Yeah, because it kind of feels like, I guess, the message of that film is the idea that kind of anyone's voice can be powerful.
Absolutely. And in unison, those anyone plus anyone voices, the summation of the anyones is everyone or a lot of people. And there's also a spiritual theory that you don't need to have everyone do one thing for it to succeed. You just need a focused group, a small focused group that really intentionalizes and visualizes a particular result to bear the fruit of reality.
Yeah, because it's been released at a time where, there is a lot of political unrest in the world. Do you kind of hope it inspires something positive?
I hope both films inspire something positive. Truth to Power, I think will dispel the curse of the keyboard warriors who tell artists like myself or Tom Morello or many other people that if they don't agree with one of our ideas, that they tell us to just go play music and stop talking about politics or whatever. And it kind of shines light upon the fact that we are diverse beings and we can do more than one thing.
Yeah.
you know you know Successfully.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool about it. And I hope the other film, I Am Not Alone, actually becomes a catalyst for these other movements to learn about decentralized civil disobedience, which is shown in the film as a successful plot for the first time in a peaceful revolution in history.
Because I think True to Power kind of features, System's Wake Up the Souls tour and kind of that final big show in the Armenia capital. I mean, those gigs were incredible, like, a 3-hour concert / history lesson. And I think after that, the US kind of formally recognized the Armenian genocide for what it was.
Right. December 2019, both houses of Congress formally recognized the Armenian genocide. We're hopeful that President Biden this year will take his cue from Congress, and on April 24, which demarks the day that we commemorate the Armenian genocide, that he uses the word genocide and properly recognizes it. We also hope that the UK Parliament does its part in recognizing the genocide and does not stay behind in true reflection of its own history.
I mean, is that kind of your proudest achievement, kind of your work to kind of, I guess, educate people about that and kind of?
I think, look, it took a nation, of Armenians to kind of work year in, year out for decades, to more than decades, probably half a century, since the work having to do with, awareness about the genocide and the need for proper recognition. So it's the whole Armenian community around the world that should be, that should feel somewhat proud. But I think I'd feel better when the grandchildren of the perpetrators of the genocide recognize their true history. Turkey, the government of Turkey, properly recognizes the genocide. I think that's very important. All of this is done around the world to put diplomatic pressure, not physical pressure, but diplomatic pressure in some ways on Turkey to do the right thing. And I'd like to remind people that most European nations have recognized the genocide, including Germany and France and Italy and European Parliament, the Vatican, etc., along with a lot of nations in South America, Russia. So it's really a matter of time where and the important thing to recognize a genocide is obviously to stop other genocides from occurring, to really understand the lesson. There were no Nuremberg trials after the Armenian genocide, after World War I, unfortunately. I wish there were, because then things would be put into perspective. There would be proper international legal proceedings and etc. So it's important.
Definitely. Has kind of the way you approach your activism changed, over time, since you first started making music to sort of today?
The approach hasn't changed. No, when I see something, I'm just a little more careful. Okay. But that's from having a family. And so I always say, if I was going to say fuck you to a world leader that's powerful, and I will now just literally debase them based on their injustices which is actually more powerful. Yeah. And you get more listeners than if you just say fuck you. But my approach has changed just based on, I guess, my growing up further, but my inspiration hasn't changed. My zeal for activism and my almost need to speak truth to power has never changed.
Do you kind of think more bands need to kind of actually get involved in activism rather than kind of just posting on social media?
Yeah, I think it's very important to be involved in things and not just post. I mean, you can't be physically involved with hundreds of causes, but, and so for some, you just make comments, obviously, but I think it's important to put your money where your mouth is, and actually get into the work aspect of it, For example, with System, that's why we raised funds, and that's why we used the songs as a way of disseminating the truth about what was going on. um, with specifically with the war in Artsakh that Azerbaijan started. And so, there's got to be an end goal, and you've got to be all in and work hard toward it. And that makes it a lot more complicated and a lot more work than just even creating music and releasing it, or even talking about it or posting about it, because it becomes draining. Like, you have to look at every aspect of it, make sure that it's not taken out of context. It doesn't become a song anymore. It becomes a cause. And you're a lot more working a lot harder to make sure everything is perfect, nothing gets fucked up, because it's more important than just releasing art.
When bands like, System and kind of Rage Against the Machine first broke through, kind of you offering people information that perhaps, they didn't have access to. Nowadays, with the internet, everything's available. So with that in mind, do you think the role of political music has changed at all?
Maybe. Just because everything's out there doesn't mean you're eating the right things or reading the right things, right? So, it's like, the flurry and diversity of information make the truth more obfuscated, and justice harder to achieve in some ways. So, but yes, there is information about everything. A story can break immediately in Myanmar, and with the military cracking down, and everyone knows about it within an hour, which is amazing for, a time in history. And does it change political music? I don't think so. Not really.
Yeah. Do you kind of think the importance of political music nowadays might be more in kind of the shared feeling it speaks to, rather than kind of the information it sort of gives?
I think a little bit of both, because like I said, the information might be out there, but may not be, information about the Armenian genocide was out there, but I think the band speaking about it helped push that narrative, and that truth. So I think it does help. But it's a good point you're making, because, because you're spreading awareness with information as well as a point of view. So, the information might be out there. People may know about the information, but that point of view, that zeal for kind of correcting an injustice, if you will, still needs to be there.
Yeah, definitely. I guess kind of, $1 million question. Do you kind of have any hopes that System will ever make new music again, following the 2 singles you did last year?
I think that making the two songs was an incredible task, and I'm incredibly proud of my brothers and System of a Down, because we galvanized. Like, we didn't think about anything except getting these songs out as soon as possible, and so that they can have a physical impact on on the attacks perpetrated by Turkey and Azerbaijan, and raise funds. And so I think that left an incredible good feeling with all of us, that when we do things outside of our own persona for causes outside of ourselves, then it's easier than we ever thought to kind of get together and do it. So we'll see. Time will tell.
I mean, are you surprised that people are still so desperate for new music?
Grateful, It's incredible that people are really excited about, about a band whose last record came out in 2006. I think that's a huge compliment. And going to concerts and seeing dads with their kids is a huge compliment. Like, seeing that, that the music could be multi-generational is the biggest compliment. So I'm incredibly grateful that people are still excited. It's way better than someone being, oh yeah, not excited, like that's never gonna happen, whatever, so that's great.
Yeah. I mean, how difficult does kind of the differing political views kind of within the band make it sort of to get things rolling?
The band dynamics, a good band always has a lot of dynamics, whether it's political differences, ideas, which kind of just became pronounced with John and I in the last year or whatever, during the whole Trump re-election campaign. But that wasn't really that much of an issue with American politics before with the band. It's a new phenomena, really, if you will.
Yeah.
But John's my brother-in-law as well as my band member. So, find someone who doesn't have a brother-in-law with a differing political, and I'll find you an interesting family. But, I was talking to Rick Rubin about this for his podcast, Broken Record. It's really interesting because some of the most amazing bands, the bands that create the most elastic and interesting music, are ones that have very interesting, weird dynamics, differences between band members. And so I wouldn't change that. I wouldn't change that in the least bit, better than 4 or 5 people, making what I call corporate music, which is we agree on everything, want to maximize our returns, and let's put out music every year and let's tour every year and let's do this because we're Pepsi, or whatever. We're not. System of a Down has never been that. We're fucking, we're punk rock, and sometimes it works, and it works great when we're working together, but sometimes we're not working together. So be it.
Amazing. So you still got plans to kind of tour together, and there's no like awkward family dinners or anything like that?
No. Yeah, we have a few shows. I mean, we've had to cancel a lot of our shows from last year and this year due to COVID. There's a few still remaining in LA last quarter, I think, that are going to happen, and we'll have to see about the coming years at this point.
Amazing. Yeah, because like you never shied away from your criticism of Trump. Does a Biden presidency make you hopeful?
I think the word is relief more than hopeful. I think,
Yeah.
With Trump gone and Biden in, I think there was a sense of relief that we all sighed, not just in the US, but around the world, because US policy affects the rest of the world more than any other country in the world. And the president has way too much power in terms of foreign policy, more than domestic policy, because Congress will hamper him on domestic policy. But, so US president has way too much power in terms of foreign affairs. So it affects the rest of the world greatly. So I think the whole world felt a bit of relief that Trump was gone and that, someone more an adult so was now in power. Does it go far enough for me as an activist in terms of my, wishes for pushing the envelope on lifestyle changes having to do with climate change? Does it go far enough in terms of my wishes of wealth redistribution or, free, tuition and free healthcare in the US, which you enjoy in your country?
At the moment.
Huh?
At the moment.
At the moment, yeah. I would like to see all those things come into fruition. Hopefully Biden's administration opens the doors to some of those ideas that Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and some other progressives were pushing for. But, so personally, it's kind of middle of the road for me, but compared to the chaotic kind of policies of whatever the Trump administration was called, lacking 3/4 of the staff that actually does the work, it's great.
2021 is obviously the 20th anniversary of Toxicity. And for many people of like my generation, it was the first time, they really heard about things like for-profit prisons or the exploitation of the working class. And it was such an impactful album for so many people. Like, do you have plans to kind of celebrate?
I never thought about celebrating. Yeah, so no plans to celebrate. But I've been, I've been reading about it, and I think Metal Hammer UK called Toxicity either the album or the song of 20th century, 21st century, or whatever, 20th century, right? Like we were still in the 20th century at that time, and so that's a huge compliment. So it's enjoyable seeing those things, but the things that it makes me think about, and we'll relate it back to the film Truth to Power, is when I think about the Toxicity, when I think about the record Toxicity, I don't think about it being 20 years and a celebration of it and what a great record it was, and which it is. But I think of all the stress. I think of the release, and the LA riots that happened upon the release of the film, and us getting banned from radio on the week of our album release, with Chop Suey, taken off the air, censored by Clear Channel because of 9/11, my statement, Understanding Oil, that was posted to our website, and me having to go on Howard Stern, defend my words, being on tour a week after 9/11 with crazy threats of further terrorist attacks in the US on the telly and news. And so when I think of toxicity, I think of toxicity. I don't think of a record that's 20 years old that people love, which I appreciate. But I think of all that other stuff.
Amazing. And I guess kind of what's next for you? Like, I know you've mentioned you're sitting on a few records, but kind of what's your to-do list looking like?
Some more releases this year from COVID lockdown finishing of music, and also a lot of films. I'm scoring a Netflix series now, and I'll be doing a few other films this year. So probably some soundtracks as well, and more artwork, and keep on going.
Amazing. I mean, are you any further along kind of in your plans to perform system music with an orchestra?
Oh, yeah, it's funny you're the second person who's asked. No, I haven't even talked to the guys about that, but I think it would be a fun venture to kind of strip everything down with systems music down to like acoustic guitar and vocals, and then start building an arrangement for orchestra. And I'd be happy to one day. I think it would be a big task to do so, but and of course you can get other arrangers to do that, or work with other arrangers and do it together. But it would be fun. It would be fun to do one day.
Amazing. I mean, what keeps you so inspired? Because I think, some artists in your position, you've got a successful band that you can kind of tour every couple of years, headline big festivals, but you seem to be constantly creating and kind of investing in new ideas, new genres, new directions. Like, just, you don't really stop. What kind of keeps you going?
I'm an artist. Touring is fun, but it's artistically redundant.
Mm-hmm.
Creating is artistically fulfilling. That's it.
Amazing. Well, I'll let you get on, but thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, brother. Have a wonderful night, Ali. Thanks for the interview, bro.
Thank you so much. Look after yourself.
You too. Cheers.
Bye.